One of the most celebrated investigative journalists of our time, Bob Woodward of the Washington Post. He's reported on every president since Nixon, and he's the author or co-author of a dozen #1 best-selling nonfiction books. Considering what he's covered over the years, it's appropriate that he joins me at the historic Hay Adams Hotel, overlooking the White House. All next on Politicking. It's always great to come back to Washington, especially on a lovely day like today, and especially to be with an old friend like Bob Woodward. The Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, worked for the Washington Post since 1971, currently is associate editor, author or co-author of 12 #1 national best-selling nonfiction books. Most recent, The Price of Politics, that is out in paperback. We're coming to you from the historic Hay Adams Hotel, located across from the White House. The executive office building's over there. There's the White House. President Obama and his family stayed here for 2 weeks prior to his first inauguration. The president is approaching the end of his 5th year in office. Give me an assessment. Obama at 5.
Well, George Will, a columnist, said Obama's had the worst first year of a second term since Nixon. I think that's overstatement, but Obama's having trouble now, and certainly with Obamacare. And it's not just the technical website issue. It's, is it going to work? What does it mean to people? And whenever there's a change like this, a change I think is wise. I think people should have health insurance, and whether they're going to make it function for millions of people like they promised, we're going to see.
Are any second terms... Do any second terms get off well?
It's a good question. I mean, there generally is a bump in the road. But if you look at the world right now, I think the world is such a dangerous place. All of the, if you go from North Korea down to Libya and Egypt and ask questions about China and Russia, one of the CIA people came over recently and said, the fuse of instability is lit in about a dozen countries. Whether it's going to go off this week or tomorrow or 5 years from now or ever, we don't know. But just the level of instability, these countries that are unhappy with us. So that's in addition to all the domestic problems.
What keeps you going, Bob? I mean, you're very successful. You don't need the money. You're 70 years old. You could go watch the dancers, as Adlai Stevenson used to say. What keeps you on?
Well, these are the dancers. These are the most interesting dancers in the world. And if
you never get tired of this?
No, because there are always surprises. There are always things we don't know, and try to dig into them. I have the luxury of time to do these long books or projects for the Washington Post. And you start out and you think the story's this way, and the story's an opposite direction.
I want to get into a lot of current politics, but I should ask you about the new owner of the Post and what's that like over there, because this has been so much the Grahams, and they're gone. What's it like?
Jeff Bezos, the founder, CEO of Amazon, bought it with personal money, so it's not an Amazon enterprise. I've known him for years. I think he's the real thing. He believes in an independent, aggressive press. He came to the Post after buying it and told the story about watching the Watergate hearings on his elbow with his grandfather when he was about 8 or 9. And so he understands. He gets the heritage, he gets the sense of obligation.
Isn't this an unusual time to go into a business that they say is going out?
Yeah, it is, and it's high risk, but he thinks he can do it, and if, given his tech savvy, his sense of how to organize things, I'm optimistic. If anyone can do it, he can. And let's be direct, as we always have over the years. The news business is in trouble, and we've gone through this convulsion and disruption, and it would be great to have a news organization like the Washington Post soar and get better and better so it becomes something that kids look at regularly.
I think it can happen in a technological age where kids don't read the paper.
That's our obligation. It's a big hurdle to get over, but I think it's possible because we discover over there in the White House time and time again there are things going on that we just don't know about. And when we discover them, they're really important to our lives. So I think that can be communicated to young people, but
Let's hope.
Hard.
I'm a newspaper guy. In a recent interview, you suggested a rat's nest of concealment and lies is at the heart of many of the Obama administration's scandals and screw-ups. You said it on Face the Nation. How bad is it?
Well, what I was saying, we were talking about the Kennedy assassination and the secret world of, you know, the CIA had contacts with Oswald and things even come out that we didn't know about today. And what I was saying is that this secret world of CIA, FBI, National Security Agency, all we've learned about the eavesdropping on people in this country, people abroad, like the Chancellor of Germany, Merkel. This is the world of concealment, and I think it's dangerous. I think we need to know more about it.
What troubles you more, a president who knows what's going on and lies, or a president who doesn't know what's going on?
They're both troubling, obviously. And in this case, in fairness to Obama, it's not clear what he knew or exactly what he didn't know in terms of the eavesdropping on Chancellor Merkel. I think we'll get answers to that. I think they're reviewing it. You know, this is all about 9/11. This is even a dozen years after 9/11. Bush and Obama set up this apparatus to get data, to spy, to be very aggressive in the counterterrorist programs.
Against friends, too.
Yeah, and you know, because Germany is a hothouse of terrorist planning and has been, and there were 9/11 suspects who spent time in Germany. So you can see we want to kind of cover the waterfront, but it's pretty clear it got out of hand, and that everything can't be dictated by 9/11 as it was in the years after the Bush years.
You were in intelligence in the Navy, right?
I was in communication. I was not in intelligence.
Well, in communication about intelligence, though.
Well, it was communication about operations more. People have written, you know, this is a matter of record in the Pentagon and in the Navy that I was somehow involved in intelligence that fed to conspiracy theories about Watergate, which, you know, there's just no basis for. But I wish I'd been in intelligence. It would have been much more interesting than what I did.
As a investigative reporter, have you ever honestly or dishonestly used wiretapping or gained information in a manner that might be considered out of order?
No, absolutely not.
So what do you think of the
Because
government?
remember, I started on the Nixon case, really, and that was all about wiretapping, and it kind of had an aroma that was negative, and to get into something like that would be just didn't happen. Now, people have given me transcripts of wiretaps that other people did that have been used, including Nixon's own wiretapping on his own offices.
Dick Cheney told us that he thinks that what Snowden did was treason, was an enemy of the United States to reveal that. What do you think?
You know, I wish he'd come to me instead of others, particularly The Guardian, and I would have said to him, let's not reveal who you are. Let's make you a protected source and give me time with this data, and let's sort it out and present it in a coherent way. I think people are confused about whether it's illegal, whether it's bad policy. So what he did, and it's pretty clear he's held some things back, And he has said he didn't want to do anything that he deemed harmful. Now, you know, clearly broke the law, like Daniel Ellsberg on the Pentagon Papers broke the law. And we're going to see. I certainly wouldn't call him a hero.
Ellsberg is now considered generally in the heroic end, isn't he?
He is, because what the Pentagon Papers showed is massive deception and concealment, a rat's nest of lies about the Vietnam War.
What do you think of Russia harboring Snowden?
You know, that's clearly we don't have the greatest relations with Putin, but if somebody had brought us massive secrets, as I understand it, 80,000 documents from Russia, and asked for asylum, I think there's a possibility we would give that Russian asylum, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
And certainly the, you know, knowledge is power, and so I'm sure we would love to have something like that.
What's going on here, Bob, in the city we love? This intransigence, this shutdown of the government, this me against you, this I not only disagree with you, I hate you. What's going on?
Yeah, I hope it's not hate. I mean, that's what
sounds like
Nixon,
it. I'm out in California. It sounds like hate.
It sounds like hate. I don't think it's hate. I think it is a failure to accommodate and compromise. I mean, one of the things I found in The Price of Politics about all the negotiations between Speaker Boehner and Obama, between the White House and the Republicans and the Democrats, is that they don't spend the time to sit down and get to know each other. Have you ever been in a negotiation in your life?
Few.
Ever been married? A few.
A few. Keep it up, Woodward.
Good answer. Good answer. You learn in a negotiation that the person on the other side of the table is your best friend, because that is the person who can give you what you want, and you can give them what they want. That takes time. That takes listening. You see it in these budget negotiations when it gets into the last hour between Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader, and Biden, the vice president. They can sit down and they have a relationship, and they'll say, one for you, one for me, one for you, one for me. And they don't do this, and this becomes Armageddon and deadlock. I blame both sides, but the president's the CEO of the country, and he should find a way to make this work.
My guest is Bob Woodward, one of the truly great journalists of our time. We'll be right back.
I'm the resident, and I'm sick of society sucking. I'm sick of corporations trying to convince us to consume, consume, consume. I'm sick of bankers trying to convince us all that life is all about money. And I'm especially sick of our politicians writing the laws and regulations to protect corporations and bankers while they hang us out to dry. There is just too much crap in today's society. Let's talk about that.
It was a terrible mistake, and we're working very hard to make up for it.
And once again, we put something on the air. It's a flat-out lie.
Have you ever had sex with Governor Rick Perry?
No, wait, do not answer that.
I want you to watch what we're about to do, because you've never seen anything like this on television.
What we need is to question more and to keep it uncensored, real and raw. My simple mission is to change the globe. I'ma do it with this passion and fire we're told. These words are hard hitting, you're watching your neck, but you need to tune in, cause we're breaking the set. Breaking the set. Breaking the set.
I've got a quote for you. Let's make it tea time. Stay away from that story. Let's get this guy elected. Let's smear that guy. Instead of working for the people, politicians and the mainstream media are working for each other. Bribery, staged events, bias, and propaganda. think I'd rather play alone.
We're back with Bob Woodward of the Washington Post. If I have to tell you who he is, you're on Pluto. Give me your overview. You've interviewed him, I've interviewed him. You spent more time with him than I have, but give me your overall assessment of this man, Barack Obama.
First of all, on the positive side, I think he really cares about people. I think all of this healthcare business is about getting the insurance for the 30 million people who don't have it. I think he has a big heart. In his second inaugural, there's a line that just blew me away where he said, "Our creed is that the little girl born in the bleakest poverty will have the same chance as anyone else." Now, we know how bleak, and he knows how bleak the bleakest poverty in America is. When is that child going to have the same chance as your children, my children, his children? 200 years? But he stated it as a creed, and it's certainly not reachable in his second 4 years in his presidency, but that's in there because he feels that.
So there's a but coming?
Yeah, and the but is, and I've written about this, I don't think he has found a way to work his will as president. If you knew Clinton well as president, Reagan well, two parties, two different outlooks. You look at their 8-year presidencies, and they found a way to work their will. And Obama has not found that road, and that road is always compromising.
Has he got time to find it?
Sure, sure. And there may be, the big unexpected will occur, and he'll figure out how to deal with it. I think he's paying a great price. The economy in this country is much better than probably anywhere in the world, and we could have a takeoff if he would figure out these budget taxing issues, and they do it for 2 months or 3 months, and we're going into this soup again in a couple of months.
Does he need luck?
It's great to have luck, but if you don't have it and you can't control it, as no president, no person can, you've got to have a way of saying, what are my goals? Now, he tells people privately. This summer, some people were having dinner with him, and they asked, what are you worried about the most? And he said, unemployment, climate change, and Pakistan. And unemployment is the right issue to worry about. Millions of people in this country who can't find a job. That is the great injustice in a democracy. And he should work harder. I think he cares about it, but his end of the bargain, the governing bargain, is very carefully with the Republicans and with the Democrats in Congress saying, this is a plan, these are the things we're going to do, and we're going to stabilize it. And I mean, you chuckled, quite rightly so, when you say that, we're going to do it for 2 months, we're going to do it for 3 months. He shouldn't let that happen.
Let me run down some political figures. Give me your thoughts. What do you make of Senator Cruz?
I do not know him. He's put a stake in the ground, maybe in the heart of the Republican Party in the process. So we'll see. I mean, I've never been enchanted with true believers on the right or on the left. I think someone like you try to be empirical, and he's not. He's an ideologue. Hillary, I think will run. I think she's a dynamo. I got to know her when she was First Lady, and she's a very focused person. People who worked with her in the State Department and the White House and other cabinet positions when she was Secretary of State for the first Obama term, across the board give her high marks. and say she knew how to manage, she knew how to set reasonable goals and
pretty good senator, too.
Yeah, that's right. As a senator, she
was formidable.
Yeah, she made her deals.
Chris Christie.
We'll see, you know, it's possible. Don't eliminate it. But remember, if we were talking in 1989, we said, who's going to be the next president? Bill Clinton would not have been on our list. 1973, Jimmy Carter would not have been on our list. So, you know, all these things depend, but he's got a storyline and, again, to use that word, a political franchise, which is very appealing to people now.
Joe Biden.
Joe Biden, underestimated, been a key figure in the Obama White House on national security, on domestic issues.
Think he'll run for hire? You think he'd?
Don't know. I mean, it would. I think he would like to do it. He's got the governing credentials, and if Hillary doesn't run or something happens there, he may be too old in many people's eyes, maybe in his own eyes. But I think the big, if you're looking for a theme for the year, it's governing. You got to fix things. You got to get things done.
Paul Ryan.
Got to know him when I did The Price of Politics, a force to be dealt with, and more of a realist than an ideologue, though I think he comes off as an ideologue. I think he would be the sort of person who could make a deal with the Democratic president if he were, say, Speaker of the House.
You were, I guess, 20 years old. I was 30 years old, 50 years ago. What are your thoughts, reflections as we approach the 50th anniversary of that terrible day?
I was a junior in college, and the day of the Kennedy assassination, the time of it, I was in class, a French history class, and
Where?
The professor at Yale, and he was giving a lecture on the French counter-revolution and the terror, the period of, you know, just hanging people in, somebody went up and handed him a note, and there was, you know, you never interrupt the professor, and he opened it up and looked at it and said, I've got a note that says President Kennedy and Vice President Johnson have been shot in Dallas. Pause. Class dismissed. And we all ran over to where there were televisions in the areas, and I remember watching Walter Cronkite announce that John Kennedy was dead.
What do you think? There's a book out now, What Might Have Happened If He Were President. I guess the biggest question would be, do you think he'd have left Vietnam?
You know, I don't know any of that. The message I took from the Kennedy assassination, and I think what we need to take in a more general way, is truly awful things can happen. And you think that a president's in a protective bubble, or that we as a civilization are in, you know, we're protected. We were attacked on 9/11, and we haven't really been attacked again. And so there's that feeling of invincibility, which I think is a dangerous feeling. So my wife always says I'm a pessimist, and I'm always looking at what's the worst outcome. And
our late friend, Edward Bennett Williams, asked him once, are you a pessimist? He said, of course I am. I'm intelligent. You're famous, a journalistic celebrity. It means you sometimes get reported about. Earlier this year, you were in the news in connection with your reporting on sequestration, and the White House reportedly threatened you.
No,
well, they didn't.
They
well,
never
what was it like
threatened
for you when you were part of the news?
Yeah,
something you abhor.
What I challenged them on some things in the book and in a column I wrote for the Post, and they got upset, and somebody reported that I it sounded like I was threatened. I was never threatened. I got yelled at. I'm used to being yelled at. Actually, you learn things when people yell at you.
Who yelled at you?
Gene Sperling, who's the head of the Economic Council.
He yelled?
He yelled, and he apologized, and I said, don't worry about it. It was my feeling, and I said, it's not the way to deal with something like this. But, you know, we made up. I've been over to the White House to talk to him, and he's somebody who had that job for Clinton. He goes way back, like I do.
Of all the White Houses you've covered and written about, how do you rank this one in era of outwardness?
Well, because I have this luxury of time, I can work for 18 months on one project or a book and then send a long memo to President Obama, and it appeals to the cerebral side of him, and so I sit down and talk to him extensively about how he made his decisions. So I haven't had a problem. I think going after people who've leaked and so forth, I can understand the motive there. I think it's just not a good policy. The problem is there's not enough openness in government. It's not that there's too much openness, and they often feel that. So I think they have a mixed record on this, but personally, I have to be honest, they've been responsive to me when I have questions and want to talk to people.
I only have a couple of minutes. How much of the antipathy toward the president do you think is racial?
You know, it never gets expressed openly. I'm sure some of it is, but there is a core of people who are just so anti-Obama and won't give him a break on anything. And I think that's unfortunate for him because that gives him a bunker mentality a little bit. Yeah. They're out there, they're shooting at me, it's unfair, and some of it is irrational.
And finally, are we in a phase with no Woodward book? There's no Woodward book coming?
I haven't decided on one yet.
Usually you give me a tip about what you're writing, you give me clues. Once you even gave me a hint at a title of a book years ago. Where are we with the book?
I'm working, I'm doing things for the Post now. I think the real most interesting thing in the gathering of information business, whether it be newspapers, books, television, is what's going on with the new ownership of the Washington Post. And anything at age 70 I can do to help, I'm going to focus on that.
I consider an honor calling you a friend. Bob Woodward, one of my favorite people, our special guest on this edition of Politicking with Larry King. You can follow me on Twitter at King's Things, and we'll see you next time.